Right, gents, good morning. Thanks very much for taking some time. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, keeping well. It's a nice sunny day today. We've got training later this morning, so looking forward to getting out in the sun and doing a bit of coaching.
I'm already just thinking that you live people's dream in the fact of you can wake up, it's a sunny Friday, you get to go out and kick a ball about all day. I mean, like I would give anything to be able to do that every day.
There's a lot more to it than just that. And that's probably the glamorous side of what people think we do, but there is so much more that goes into it than obviously just that. Days can be long and arduous at times, but yeah, the enjoyable bits are out with the players, working with them, and the balls are rolling.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I was looking forward to about chatting with you today, and also brought fourth place Spurs Ross into the conversation, is just the fact that we all get to chat about football for a bit of time. And it's been a passion for me all of my life, as is Ross. And the great thing about what you've done, Paul, is you've been able to spend a bit of a career doing like football, as in actually playing it. I mean, I never made it past the under-14s team. I struggled to get into that, but then you played for some really good teams. You scored lots of goals, and you've managed teams, and now, of course, you're into coaching with Pulse. So I think it's a really exciting, really good conversation today about your career. Really, just talk about passionate. Because we're all so passionate about football. But what we were talking a second ago, what's your team?
Sheffield Wednesday's my team. Don't get to see them play very often. So more in recent years. Family are season ticket holders at Fulham, so I've been watching Fulham quite a bit, so I've got a bit of soft spot for them as well. So two championship sides. Hopefully Fulham go up to the Premier League, but it's a tough game ahead for them. But Sheffield Wednesday, probably biggest influence for me was growing up. Chris Waddle was a favourite player of mine, and that was back in the heyday of Sheffield Wednesday being a top five Premier League club. Days of David Hurst and Des Walker and
cup final, a few cup finals and under their belt on that.
Yeah.
So where did Sheffield Wednesday come from? Where's the link to supporting them?
Well, I'm a Yorkshireman. I was born in Yorkshire.
All right.
Really, taking football seriously as a kid growing up. Obviously, a lot of people supported Man United, Liverpool.
Yeah.
Back then in the 80s. But I think, the Chris Waddle thing, I loved watching him play. I just thought he was a fantastic player, something a bit different. He was, he wasn't your sort of, your main footballer in that era. He was a dribbler and he could score from distance. I suppose sort of captured my imagination, playing football. The type of player I would like to be would be someone like him, and I think that's just maybe where it came from, and it sort of stuck with me really.
Left-footed like yourself as well, obviously. So.
Yeah, very much left-footed, and the right leg was the same.
Yeah, and where did it all start for you, Paul? Obviously you came through the ranks, playing in different teams. What were the first teams that you started playing for years ago?
Well, back in the 80s, we didn't have sort of football clubs that started at under 6, under 7. Those clubs didn't start till roughly about under 11, something like that. So in order to play football, you either played, with friends out in the parks and things like that. But I actually started playing, it was cub football. So if you were in the Cubs or Scouts, they used to have a Saturday league that used to play against different cub packs. And that was the big influence in my area that I was living in at the time, where, anyone that was sort of age 7 to probably 10, 11, you played cub football, and you played it was mixed age group. It wasn't you played in your same age group all the way through. You could be a 7-year-old playing with a 10-year-old. The challenge was that you had the physical side that you were up against, and also it was competitive football. And so many kids joined the Cubs because they wanted to play football. And then from that, when that finished, everyone then joined their local football club at under 11 and sort of progressed through to sort of 16s and youth team from there. So that's where, my influence came from. Really, my older brother played football, and my dad wasn't really a footballer. He played football, but he was involved. He helped, with the running of the team and things. So it sort of became part of your life quite quickly. training sessions, matches, and that's it. Once you're in that sort of, once you're hooked in, you're off and running, and you're doing it week in, week out then.
Yeah, I know. Cross, do you remember playing that age? Because as I said, I mentioned I really struggled to get into teams years ago, but I was always had big admiration for players that sort of went from that early age all the way through, because you've got to go through the ranks. You've got to play at each age, haven't you? Ross, what do you remember about playing that age?
Yeah, well, I remember the Cubs had their football teams back in my day as well, and also the school had a bit of a football team. I remember when I was at junior school, playing in that. But I started playing for Mitchell Athletic. I think it might have been under 10s when I started playing there. So they still had a few little teams around. But I remember at Mitchell Athletic, we were a really successful team, and we had there's a couple of brothers, Jason and Daniel Sheldrake. Paul probably might have heard of them.
Yeah.
And their dad managed the team, and he had us doing circuit training when we were like 9 years old, doing all these circuits in the gym, and we must have been the fittest team around. And we won the Hampshire Cup, which is a huge cup for that age group, and to win it at that age was brilliant. But yeah, started really early. So
I don't know if you remember, Ross, but we played, even at a young age, we played on 11-a-side pitches. We didn't play on 7-a-side or 9-a-side like they do now.
Yeah, the cup final was on a full-size pitch with full-size goals. Yeah. I was playing right back, and I hoofed a big long ball on, and our striker was really quick, just ran onto it and put it away. So,
and that's what happened a lot, growing up. I mean, the game's changed for the better now, in my opinion, for grassroots and the age groups growing up playing on sort of appropriate pitches and things like that, and certain measures in place. But back then, it was the governance of the game was probably less, and it was just just got out there and just played, and it was tough playing on pitches. The amount of work we had to do to running around as 7-8-year-olds playing on full-size pitches. That sounds crazy now, but that's how it was. We didn't know anything different.
How's you've seen that transition? Because of course you've been playing at every level, and you've been coaching from when you first started playing and back then to how it is now, and then the facilities, and of course we come on to Pulse, the facilities that younger players have got to learn and get educated and have mentorship. How has that changed since when you first started and were learning the game?
Oh yeah, hugely. I mean, I think I probably learned more about the game from playing with, like, say, my friends on the street, playing on the, in the parks and things like that. And I think now what we've created is, and certainly the FA has had a big influence on that, is we've created environments now through clubs where it's all very, obviously, it's very safe. Its facilities are improving year on year. There's more 3G pitches coming along, which mean that football can be played, all year round. So we don't get as many waterlogged pitches. That is increasing and getting better. I think there's been more awareness, more support put into grassroots coaching, helping parents get educated around taking teams and supporting kids with their development. So I think a lot of work has been done to create the right environment for a young footballer from the age of 5-6 years old to go through the ranks. But I think sometimes we go the other way, and we're maybe just a little bit too safe, and we're a bit too cautious. And sometimes the best footballers that we've produced in the country have been the ones that have been, self-taught almost, being played on the street. People like Gaza, he played on the streets in Newcastle, and playing probably games that were probably, large groups of numbers of kids playing football, but it would be about how good you could be on the ball, how skillful you could be. And I think sometimes we go the other way, and we sort of coach too much a little bit with youngsters. We don't give them the freedom to go and express themselves at a young age.
That's interesting. So do you find that you say you're coaching a bit too much? Is it that because you're going through specific drills, or what is that sort of coach? You said also mentioning about it being a bit too controlled or safe in some respect. And you play, because I know in Spain, it's very much the, they two-touch football. You're going out, you're playing. You've just got to play to keep the ball, and it's much more about that. And you don't really play so much to score and all that. From what I've learned about some of their approaches, how's that different here and where it's become?
I think for a long time we've had this perception that we've got to be like the Spanish, we've got to be like other nations. I think really what we need to actually be focusing on is actually letting our kids be kids first and foremost. We sometimes overcoach. We've still got a focus from parents around wanting to win more than anything. And it means more to the parents about winning than it does to the kids. The kids are just usually happy playing with their friends, and as long as the environment's right, their development will come through playing with their teammates. As long as the type of coaching is good and it's all ball related stuff. What Ross mentioned then about doing circuits. You just don't do that now. You don't do circuits with 8-9-year-olds. That would almost be bullying nowadays.
I think so. God, if I'm 8 or 9, you don't need. I remember when I was 8 or 9, you didn't need to encourage me to go out and play football, because if I had a day off, like a day off school or whatever, and it like before school I play football, lunchtime breaks I play football.
Yeah.
Saturdays I play football all day. As in, I get up 8 o'clock, I'm out with my mates and play. So you don't need to encourage me to go play football.
Yeah.
And so I think at an 8 or 9 year old level, all you want to do is play. That's it.
Yeah. And with your and that's what I keep emphasising. That point is, my son is 7. He's had a year now of being, in a football environment at his local youth club, and I've been involved with that, helping this last year. And I just want him to enjoy it. I just want him to be part of a team and be around, with other boys from other schools that he doesn't know, and having fun. That is the most important thing at a young age. And I think sometimes there's too much pressure put on the kids you've got to achieve, you've got to win trophies, you've got to try and become a professional. And it's like, hang on, what is this actually about? This is about the love of the game. And we want the kids to fall in love with the game so that they keep playing all the way through up into adult life.
And is that what happened with you in some respects? You just fell in love with the game at such an early age, but you maybe didn't feel the pressure, which has allowed you then to carry on and play, and obviously now get into coaching.
Yeah, definitely. I just loved playing. Any chance to get out and kick a ball around with friends or by myself, that was just my passion. And I think that's, no matter what you do, whether your interest is, for example, is tennis, or your interest is whatever, a hobby or an activity. If you throw yourself into it and you are that passionate about it and you want to do better, then ultimately you will. There's no sort of silver bullet. There's no coach that's just going to go out there and make you a successful player or professional. It comes from the drive from within, from a young player, how much they want to achieve something. And I think that sort of, I know we'll probably go on to talk about it, that probably comes, when we talk about Pulse, that's sort of where we really start sort of focusing on that transition from youth footballer to senior footballer. Where I think that will really that really becomes more important. But certainly as kids, I think is if you see a talent and you see there's a passion for it, that's what we've got to nurture, because they're the next generation of footballers this country is going to produce.
Well, maybe we should talk about it now, because it's actually got a nice link, because it's almost like, so like kids just go out and they want to play. And then when you're spotting talent, do you see that in the youngsters quite early on and think, oh, that guy's got a little bit of something, but he's 11, so we need to nurture him for a couple of years to see how it progresses? Or do you actually spot the talent a bit later? Like, how do you, because I know some players get signed for, big clubs at a very young age, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I think in my opinion, from what I see with young players, it's I look for a natural sort of enthusiasm for the game immediately. That sort of passion to when they're playing in games. If I'm watching a game, there's an enthusiasm to get on the ball. They want the ball all the time. They want to be involved in everything that's going on. Then you look obviously at the ability side of things. Their technique, even at a young age. What's their technique like? What's their skill? How well do they manipulate the football when they've got the ball in possession? And I think you know, we look at this football brain. Are they spotting passes? Are they looking for where they can attack space and dribble into areas? So I think there's probably a number of things you ticking off in your mind around. Yeah, that's somebody at, say, for example, at 10, 11 years of age is showing potential. But again, what you don't want to do is then start coaching things out of the player and getting them to do things different. If they're strong at doing those things at a young age, you want to keep developing that and nurturing that further, you know, but possibly in different environments with different maybe challenges laid in front. I think, you know, you do get those early developers, kids that, you know, were very, very strong players at 10, 11 years of age, but then by the time they get to 14, 15, that their enthusiasm maybe drops off. Then you've got all the whole puberty side of things coming into play in terms of growing, you know, obviously people develop at different rates, so that height and weight and build and things like that. So those things all come into play as well. And I think it's very difficult to predict at those sort of adolescent years whether a player is going to become a professional. I think there's still those key indicators around, you know, technical and skill and that enthusiasm for the game. But it's very difficult still until probably someone gets to around 17, 18. Do you actually think, yeah, they could be a professional footballer? And that, in my opinion, tends to be how I see it throughout the game. There's probably one sort of freak of nature, and that was probably Rooney. Rooney was ready at 15 and a half, 16 years of age to play top-level Premier League football. It just doesn't, you know, players are not usually ready, and there's a small percentage that are ready at 18. Certain players are not ready until they're 19, 20, 21, and they look at Chelsea, you know, they send players out on loan, you know, to get experience, bring them back, and look at someone like Mason Mount. You know, he's now playing in Chelsea's first team. You know, he's come all the way through the system with them, but there'll be times where, you know, he would have probably had his struggles around his development in terms of, you know, he may have been physically less able than someone like his teammate like Tammy Abraham, whose physique is different to his, you know, but Chelsea would have developed him and nurtured him to get him in the right environment, sending him out on loan to places. You know, the whole player development thing is so vast. I know I'm going off on one a little bit now, but you know, it's not a one size fits all. It's very different. Everyone's journey into football is very different.
So, and that's a really interesting point, because you were talking about the age groups and what happens, you know, because of course 14 is really different to 16 and 16 is really different to 18. This is as the players sort of developing. So in your Football Academy Pulse, I think you're quite bit more specific around, you know, you coach players 16 to 18. What is it about that age group and that transition in a young player's life that's the age group that you think that's where they need the coaching?
I think it's a whole host of things. I think from a footballing side of things, you're coming towards the end of your youth football as such by title. Your final sort of two years of youth football before you're regarded as an adult in terms of, you know, I suppose how the law sees you is by the time you're 18, you're an adult. So youth football tends to be finished after under 18s, and it's what we want to try and do is try and focus on making that transition from youth football into senior football, and how can we make that happen? Because again, some players can be fantastic players at youth level, but they struggle to make that jump into senior football. And similarly, we find there's boys that have been in youth football have sort of gone under the radar a little bit, maybe have, you know, struggled at times, or, you know, their physical development maybe is less at that age, so that they've not been as noticed as much. And then suddenly football just happens. It just clicks for them by the time they get to sort of 17, 18, and they're making that jump into senior football with ease. So I think that, you know, on that side, with Pulse, we've got the football development side of things still. We're still working with players. It's that coaching as well. We find we're working with players that maybe have not been coached before. You know, they maybe have had, you know, for certain periods in their youth development, they've been with perhaps a parent that has run the team that will quite openly admit that they're not a coach. They are just running the team, you know, to manage the team, to make sure the team has a game at the weekend. So we do find there's players that come to us that just, really want coaching, really want to learn a bit more about the game and their self-development. And then we've got the sort of off the field side of things, that we're looking at people becoming men, going from boys to becoming men, and the whole growing up side of things, and the other parts of life, the responsibilities that come with becoming an adult, which it's part of growing up. There's the going out, there's friendship groups, there's other distractions as well, and so we do see with young footballers that they can go and fall out of love with the game just as much as they fell in love with it. They can fall out of love as well. So that period is a real 16 to 18 is a real age group that you can make a key influence on in terms of pathways for the future, and moulding people into hopefully a successful career in life, not just in football. That's what we really want to and have done is really focus on the person as well as the player.
And that's what struck me really when I was learning a lot about Pulse, is that it's not just the preparation for football and playing football and getting more skilled at the game and becoming more tactically aware, etc. It's also then the life management skills, because 16, 17, 18, you can get influenced by a whole lot of things which can derail. You're just especially 18, you're just going out and you're drinking and all those different things that could be available. How do you approach that? Because that must be really different. Again, tailoring to each person. Some people might not care and they're just like, I'm fully focused on football. Other people might be very influenced by those types of things. So how do you prepare someone for that adulthood in some respect?
I think it comes back to certain sort of behaviours. Some ideas around early things we try to work with students on. Little things that become important in the workplace, things like eye contact when you're talking to people, shaking hands, not that we're obviously doing that at the moment, but certain things that are sort of football culture, that we're trying to sort of influence on people, that these are actually really important things that you need in everyday walk of life. And I think what we also try to do is we try and create an environment where we challenge all our students to improve and be better, but we also make it fun and enjoyable to be around. We have a lot of students that go, once they've done their time with us, they don't want to leave. They say, can I not stay for a bit longer? Can I do this? And it's because we create something that they feel part of. We have this big sort of thing for our social media called #PulseFamily. So everyone that has come through Pulse is part of this #PulseFamily, and they almost in a way don't ever leave us. We are always there for them should they need us in anything that they need support with, advice with, whether it's football, whether it's anything else. And I think that's just what we're trying to sort of impact and influence on students is to sort of, we are essentially we are a sports college. If you look at it on that side of things, but we are a little bit more, I suppose, we're smaller than certain bigger colleges. We're smaller, so we can build those sort of relationships where people can feel safe and comfortable around, not only the students they're with, but the staff, knowing that they can ask questions and that, we're actually here to help. We're not here to say, no, you can't do this, or, you're never going to be able to do that. We're more proactive in terms of, let's make things happen for you. Let's work at things and let's do things together.
Am I right in saying it's about 10 years ago that you started Pulse? It's been going for nearly
coming up to 10 years. Yeah, I think
10 years.
This is our 10th. I think this is our 10th sort of season, but it's our 9th year of running. So, yeah, it's gone quite quick actually.
What did that look like 10 years ago when you started it and getting the word out, we're going to coach? And was the vision the same as what it's become back then, or has it sort of changed as a business model?
No, it's changed a lot in time. And the focus at the start was my business partner, Paul Seaman, who owns Pulse with me, we wanted to do something together for footballers that were based overseas to come to England to try and, you know, have a go at trying to make it in England and see what the football was like over here. So we got some international students over. We worked with SCL, who are partners of ours, with the education. And we got some international students over that wanted to do football training and matches and gather more experience of the game here. And it quickly sort of developed from that into a lot of domestic students saying, look, can I do this as well? Can I come and work with you? So it sort of very quickly married up with both the international students and the domestic students. And before we knew it, we were sort of off and running. We had a squad of players, and we were out playing games. We were working every day on, you know, in training, and it sort of snowballed from there, really. And in time, the international side of things sort of fell away, really. It was more the demand from the domestic students became more, and so we sort of channeled our energies more into that. And you know, and since then we've opened further sites, such as sort of been the demand for our services. So that's really how it sort of all came about. And yeah, you know, it's been successful. We've had a lot of students that have, you know, gone on and had successful careers, not only in football but in industry, and it's something we're very proud of.
What's your thinking back to those 10 years? What's some of your highlights, some of your favourite memories? I mean, you're seeing a lot of people come through, develop their careers. As I said, they're going off and become adults now, and they've created their own careers in that. What's been some of your favourite memories on that journey?
I think what I really like to see is when you see a student, he's straight out of school, finishes GCSEs, he joins us as a 16-year-old, and he's this sort of young lad, passionate about football, really maybe not sure about what he wants to do in life, but football is a passion. And, you know, we're now sort of 9 years down the track, so we've got students now that have graduated and are out, you know, left us a long time ago, and they're now sort of in their mid-20s, and, you know, they've got you know, they've got jobs, they've got houses, they've got families, and it's seeing them sort of go from that journey and knowing that we've had that positive impact on them. And, you know, I've been to, you know, I've been invited to weddings, I've been to funerals of boys of families, you know, family members. I've got to know them and know them so well that, you know, we do all keep in touch. And it's that for me is well, do you know what, we're making an impact on people's lives. Forget the football for the moment. You know, the football is the nice bit that comes with it. What we're actually doing is we're actually being able to have an impact on people's lives and give them those sort of values and that start in life that they want. And I think seeing boys travel, seeing boys go over to places like America to do scholarships, seeing boys go to New Zealand, Australia, play football, you know, and getting those life experiences, that again makes me feel, you know, proud that, you know, we are actually out there, you know, doing our thing, and helping people in their start in life. But what it also comes back to is what I am passionate about and what I believe, you know, is important is what I call hands dirty coaching. And I think once you get out there and you're working with players and you're in all weathers and you're working on the coaching side, that for me, playing football is over for me, but that's where you get your buzz still of being involved in football is working with the players and being part of that group, whether you can influence them and develop them. And I think that's still to this day what we love doing, is getting out there, working with players out on the grass. For me, there's no substitute to that. I love that.
Was it hands dirty football? Was that
hands dirty coaching? I call it
hands dirty coaching.
Yeah.
I love that. It's brilliant.
All weathers out there working on the finer points, the details. And do you know what? I talk to a lot of our coaches about this and say that this is where we like to feel that we're different to what other people do. Is we have that attention to detail with coaching. It is, at the end of the day, it is about that coaching. Once they're out there on the grass, is how much work can we put into them to make them understand and guide them about what we're trying to do. And I think sometimes people in football, certainly in you know, not so much a professional game, but sort of the industry that we work in with college-based programs, it's all a little bit glitz and glamour, and they want to work full time in football. But there's no substance to what you're doing. You've got to be coaching, and you've got to be coaching to a good level, because that is what the players will demand from you. You know, as you become successful with your program, the demands get higher. The players demand more from you as coaches, and I think that's a healthy thing. So yeah, I know I'm going on a little bit, guys. Sorry, but
no, it's good. It's,
no,
good.
it's really interesting.
Really interesting. Yeah.
Hands dirty coaching for me is out there in all weathers, working with players, and I don't think we'll ever get away from that in terms of that. That's the most important thing to us as a football coaching company.
Let's talk about that in more detail then. So when you're because I think the most important, if I was a player coming to you, I want to develop, I want to get better, I want to be, obviously, we talked about being a better person, but ultimately you want to deliver on the pitch. So what's that journey you take someone through when they come into you at 16? What sort of coaching are you giving? How are you getting them into the detail? I always listen to players talking about how you getting their 1%, get a little bit better here, a little bit better there, a bit faster. What is it specifically? What's the tactics? What is it that you're teaching, and what's the structure of it all?
So early on in our, when a student joins us straight after school, so once they're 16, they finish year 11 at school, we get them into some pre-season training, which will be predominantly sort of ball work, working with the ball, getting them comfortable with the ball, but, in terms of fitness-wise, working them with the ball. But very much in that first term, probably from, August, September through to Christmas, we're working on just the basics. We just go right back to basics, because, again, a lot of the time we don't know with certain students what their levels are in terms of their capabilities. We've seen them on a few occasions in terms of trials and things like that. But I think sometimes if you're going from being a part-time footballer to then becoming a full-time footballer, those are the things that you've got to be doing well day in, day out. So working on things like first touch, quality of pass, speed of pass, your agility, all those things early on in that first few months. If we can get those things right, then we can start, putting a little bit more meat on the bone after Christmas and developing things further in terms of not only individually, but also as, from a team side of things, developing the player within a team understanding. So yeah, I think sometimes coaches get away from the basics. They want to go a little bit more around, well, look at this session, look at me, this is what I can do. And really the players they want to work on the basics. They want to get things right, the simple things right. And I think the great thing is we've got the time to do that because we've got the players every day. Monday to Friday, we've got the time to actually work and strip it right back to the most basics of things so that they can get it right, and they've got a firm foundation of which to build on for the next 2 years.
And like players often come to you when they've already been playing in a position. And is it quite different if you're a defender or a winger or a striker, and they're coming to you, you still go back to the basics, or then do you have more specific training for each position, goalkeeping, for instance?
Yeah, we have goalkeeper coaches. We have a goalkeeper coach who comes in and works with the keepers. We do have specifics that we'll work on. So we may work, if we do something like an attack v defence, then we will put the defenders in against the attackers. We won't just ask the defenders to go and start attacking because they're not likely to do that in a game. So, from that side of things, we do try to be specific around players playing in their positions. We do look at players and we talk to players around considerations for playing in different positions. I've got a great story about a player that joined us as a 16-year-old, and he joined me on the first day. He told me he was a right winger, and he was a tall sort of 6'1", quite sort of gangly, awkward at times sort of player. He wasn't slow, but he wasn't quick either. I was saying, well, what's going to make you different? What's going to make you as a winger be successful? And he said, well, I've always played here. I said, well, what, since you were 9? He was like, yeah. So I said, well, from what I've seen in training, I think you could play centre back quite well. And he was like, I can't play there. And I said, well, let's have a look at it. Let's work at it. And we ended up working with him for 2 years as a centre back, and he ended up getting a scholarship to America and going out to America and playing for a college, playing as a centre back. So, you can identify players in terms of, he actually might be better here, from what we see. But sometimes the player themselves, they don't know, because they've only ever played in a certain position, because that's what they've always done. So it is down to us as well to recognise and acknowledge that, certain players may well be better, in other positions.
I think that's a really interesting point, actually, because Ross, I'm right in saying, am I saying Bale came through as left winger? Sorry, he came through as a left back.
He was a left back, yeah.
He came through as a left back. So, I mean, you got to a professional level. He was playing first team for Spurs as a left back. I want to say it's Harry Redknapp, but Harry Redknapp pushed him forward. Is it Harry Redknapp?
He did. And there's been lots of other players that have in that situation. John Terry was a striker at Chelsea for in his youth career.
Wow, was he?
Yeah, and Rio Ferdinand played a lot in midfield, at West Ham. So, players do move into positions, to when they eventually become a first team player. That does happen. So again, I don't see that being any different for us as, 16-year-olds coming to us saying, look, this is where I've played, but I actually feel I might be better here. Or we identify something, we go, you could actually do this, you could play here. And again, we've got the time to work on it. That's the great thing. We've got 2 or 3 years where we can work with them to get to that position where they can sort of, I suppose feel more comfortable playing in 2 or 3 different positions. I don't like to just say, well, a player can only play in this position. Certainly at that age, I feel that they should be comfortable playing in a few positions.
Do you have to then work a little bit on the players' mentality in some respects? If for instance, if Gareth Bale played all of his career, 15 years growing up, before he got to the Spurs first team, let's say, as a left back, he's identified with that, and now he's been asked to run at players, to beat players, to score goals from distance. I mean, obviously, and that's why his career took off in some respects, because it was incredible what then happened. Then do you have to work a little bit on the mental side of players to go, listen, you're not a winger or whatever, you'll be great as a central defender, but then that central defender comes with a lot of responsibility, because you're the backbone of the team. You make a mistake, that's likely to be a goal. So how do you work on that with the players?
Yeah, again, I think it happens over a period of time. It doesn't happen overnight, and I think you'll work with players in training, and then you'll put them into games in those positions. And what we're looking for is an understanding and an acceptance to go. Yeah, it's no good me saying to a player, look, I think you should go and play right back. If you're a centre midfielder, so I think you should go and play right back because that's the only space that we've got available in the team. That's not what it's about. It's if you spot a talent, you go, well, in the way that we play, or the way that we know potentially clubs or colleges, universities are looking for certain positions, we might look at those attributes and go, well, yeah, for example, you might be really quick, or you might have a good football understanding of when to join in with attacks and when not to. So we might say to a player, look, let's have a look at it. Let's have a run of games, you playing in that position. We'll coach you as well in that time, and let's see how that goes. And I think there has to be an acceptance from the player around this mentality to go, yeah, I'm open to change. I'm open to the idea of something different. I think that's what we don't want is this sort of closed book. Go, well, no, I'm only this. And if you don't like me, then that's your problem. It has to be the player is willing and able to accept that what's been identified is something that is actually there to help them and benefit them, not to sort of hinder them and cause them to go backwards or anything. So I think the player has to be open to that idea of change.
Yeah. Such an interesting journey. Such an interesting age, that's 16 to 18.
Yeah.
And something you mentioned earlier, which was about the ability to travel. I know when I was 18, I moved to America. I lived in America for a while. And for me, that was one of the best things I could have done, because I needed to get out. I lived in a very small town in Devon, and my view was, I've just got to get out into the world and then, and just experience stuff, right? And I was working quite a different industry then, but I need to get out. What do you think that's like for players now? Because I just think it's great if they can get out, but then you can get abroad, you can play football. I mean, I can only imagine that is just going to be great, not only for their footballing development, but it's going to be really fantastic, for their maturity as a person as well. So going back to that piece which you mentioned, where preparing them for adulthood, I don't think there's anything better you can do at sort of 18, 19, 20 to get out into the world and travel. So how do you support players going into, you mentioned New Zealand, you mentioned the US, what do those programs look like?
So the US scholarship opportunities really come about as a alternative to going to university in the UK. So for a student athlete, a footballer gets to 18 or 19, they can potentially go to America to study their degree, and in return they have to play for the university and base themselves out in the States for, say, 3 years, something like that. And I think from an opportunity point of view, it's more appealing for a young footballer to go and do that than potentially stay in the UK and do university, where university football is not known, I suppose, like it is in America, where it's very, very sort of serious and professional around, you've got the MLS watching you, the professional ranks are watching you. In my opinion, again, I don't see an awful lot of professional clubs in England watching university football in the UK on a Wednesday afternoon. There may well be some that do go and watch, but I look at it more as it's probably more social on a Wednesday playing university football in England. So if you've come from for previous 2 or 3 years, you've been on a college program in England from 16 to 18, 19, and you've been doing football every day, you want to be continuing that football every day sort of mentality and training. And I think that's where the US provides that really well. And not only if from that side of things, you've also got the cost factor. If you're a pretty decent footballer and you can get over to America and get your degree, and your football is going to pay for potentially half of it or further or more, then you're getting a degree for a considerable lot less amount of money than what you would in the UK. So I think that has become really popular, and it's something we've encouraged boys and girls to go on to. We've suggested it's a good progression for them, and so we've probably sent over the last 8-9 years, we've probably sent 50 odd students over there to go and play college soccer, whether it's junior college, university. And really the New Zealand, Australia opportunity is more about experiencing a different part of the world, obviously still English speaking, but seeing a little bit different culture, living in a different country, seeing how football's played in a different country, and I think that's a nice way for some students just to have a little look at what is actually out there in the big wide world for me in terms of football, because obviously the game's played all over the world. It can take you anywhere. I've got many friends that are coaching or managing or involved in football all over the world, and that's the beauty of it. I think going to Australia and New Zealand is a good way for a young player to go and see what it's like. And obviously also that you can involve a bit of travel as well and see a bit of the world. So it's opening a few doors, and it's opening people's eyes to travel. And like you said, sometimes, you know, we've had students that have lived in their hometown their whole life, and they're really sort of desperate to get out and see what else is out there. And you know, that I look at that as a good thing. You know, they want to. Their family obviously is their family, and they're in. You know, they'll be in the UK, but getting out and seeing what's out there for them is, you know, is definitely good for them in terms of the long term. You know, whether they choose them to come back or whether they stay on, you know, that's ultimately down to them. But again, what we're doing is we're providing that opportunity and that pathway for them to go and see what it's all about.
I think at 18, you know, the more responsible, but they like to have two things: a bit of freedom and responsibility. For me, as much as I love my family and everything else, I wanted to be out in the big wide world on my own, doing something that I loved. And I worked on cruise ships back then, so it was a very different thing. But I was just like, this is my thing. And, you know, I'm 18 years old, I'm in Miami. I was like, this is incredible, and get to my own experiences. And no doubt for your players that are going out there, they're going to have that same sense as well. If you're in New Zealand, I mean, years ago, that was unheard of, certainly to my parents in that age, which was you're 18 and you're now working in America or you're working in New Zealand. And I think it just gives them that life experience, but also I think you'll mature far quicker because they've got some real experience from being abroad. And also you get put into a situation, you've got football as your backbone, as your core, but then you're going to meet lots of people around that, which is completely your own responsibility to do it. So I just think it's a fantastic opportunity to do. What's the sort of feedback you get from that? You mentioned about 50 people have gone. What's the sort of feedback that you get from people who've gone off on those programs?
By and large, very positive. We did have a period of time where we had a few students that came home after a couple of months, a bit homesick, or didn't particularly enjoy the football experience that they had. So it hasn't been for everybody, and I'll be totally honest with you on that it isn't for everybody. And you know, sometimes it's difficult to also understand when we're here, and obviously in America, there's many different colleges, universities, and how they operate and their methods and things. So for some students, you know, it's not always the right fit. But by and large, I would say that, you know, the feedback over the years has been largely positive. Certainly, again, with New Zealand as well, the whole spending a season out there playing and maybe coaching kids in between playing for a club out there, that has been very well received, and something that we'll continue to offer. So yeah, you know, it's one exit route for us in terms of where students can go when they finish. It's something that is, you know, there for them. They all know that it's there for them if they want to do it. Some choose to do it, some choose not to, and that is absolutely fine. But that's really sort of, you know, again, what we stand for is providing opportunities that you go, well, where else would I get something like that? How would I go about getting that opportunity if I wanted to do that? Who else provides that sort of opportunity? And you know, I'd like to think that we're sort of leading the way with that in terms of, you know, making that happen for people. And like I said, we'll continue to do that as long as the demand is there from people to do it.
And you mentioned about exit routes. So going abroad is one of those exit routes. But so someone comes through, they work with you for a couple of years or so, and they're 18. They're what's next for them? What the other exit routes that they could go on?
Yeah, so we've got a number of exit routes for students domestically. So we have apprenticeship programs that students can go and join to become apprentice coaches, working in schools and after-school clubs, holiday camps with our partners SCL who operate in that field. We have, again, further opportunities within the sort of sport and leisure sector. One of our courses that we run is a fitness instructor and personal trainer course. So again, if students want to go and work, you know, as a personal trainer, or work in the sports centre, or go and work within football, within the sports science and fitness side of the football clubs, there's opportunities there. We also have many students that go and work on other apprenticeship programs, finding jobs. We've had students in the past that have gone and worked for British Airways. We've had students that have gone and joined Surrey Police. Spoke to another student this week that joined the Army 2 years ago. So a lot of what the guys learn with us and the course that they study is fully transferable. The skills are transferable into other sectors of industry. So it isn't just, I'm going to do a sports course and it's football related and that's it. I'm just going to play football my whole life. It's very much open to going into doing other things as well. And we usually every year we sort of contact a few students to sort of go, where are you now? What are you doing right now? And we want to do something for social media around what you're up to. And it's so interesting to sort of find, what people are doing, where they are in the world, what they're involved with now. So, it is, like I said, it is a very transferable course into the skills that are learned on the course into industry. And I think it goes back to those things I spoke about at the start around things like eye contact, handshakes. I know that one of our students got his job with Surrey Police, and one of the reasons he got it was because of the skills he learned doing his FA Level 2 coaching badge with us, and that was the feedback that he got. They were very impressed with his organisation, how he planned and delivered his training session to a group of people. And that's something that, was very beneficial for him when it came to his interview for his place to become a policeman.
It's really interesting. Interesting listening to you and inspiring as well, because what you've done for young players is enormous over the last 10 years. It's really, really incredible. I know I wish back then, I probably wish there was sort of a program that I could have done all those years ago, except for my passion. But I just, so it's brilliant. What I'd love to know a little bit more about really is just the business side of things, because what we've spent a lot of time today talking about the football side, which we all love, right? But actually, if we go beneath that, you're a business. You're an entrepreneur. You've started a business. You've taken it to be a very successful business to where it is today. It's sustained you for 10 years nearly. And also the business is growing and growing rapidly. You've got different academies in different areas across sort of in Hampshire and Berkshire now, I think. So let's talk through that, because that's also an important part to what you've learned on your journey, is to grow a business and create a business, and then that business has then become the platform for other people. So talk us through the business side of things. How's it all set up? And you mentioned your business partner earlier on today as well.
Yeah, so over the years we've put more sites in purely from a demand point of view. We get applications from students in certain areas of the country. They contact us via the website, and they say, look, can I join your course? And we say, well, look, that's great, but where do you live? And for some, it's just a little bit too far away for them to travel. And we're not in a position where we can offer anything like accommodation or anything like that. There's a lot of sort of safeguarding with those types of things that need to be in place. So we tend to sort of go, well, look, we probably have a radius around our sites that we know that we've got students that want to do the course. So over the years, we've gone from, say, 1 to then 2 to 3. We've also closed some academies down that we've had in certain areas where we did have sort of larger numbers that wanted to do the program, and then in subsequent years slightly less numbers. So we can't operate all the time every year in the same area. So we've had to sort of pull things in a little bit, and then maybe go again in terms of growing sort of in the area that we're probably most known for, which is Surrey Heath. And so we've put the other programs in, like you said, Hampshire, Berkshire, and really it is to match the demand from students. Say, look, I'd like a place, I'd like to come. So that's where we're probably at in terms of growth. I wouldn't say we're looking to grow massively more than where we are at, because it is, there's a lot of work that we have to put in order to operate day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year around, we have staff, we have facilities, we have, costs. we would like to sort of, throw it out there to everyone to say, look, we'd like to do it, but that becomes difficult to govern. And what we certainly don't want to do is we don't want to compromise the quality of what we're doing. So, yeah, look, we have grown a fair bit over the last few years. We're looking to sort of just, consolidate a little bit and just, continue the good work that's going on. But yeah, you're right. We are a business, and we do have responsibilities and obligations. And so, it isn't, like I said at the start, it isn't just about the football, what we do. The days can be long in terms of other things that are involved that we have to do. And like I said, those responsibilities come with running your own business. But do you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. I think, this is, when I stopped playing football, this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into coaching. I wasn't sure if I wanted to coach for a football club or I wanted to do something that was, my name above the door. But certainly, I'm out there doing it. I'm coaching and working, and it's, it's going okay.
I think it's going incredibly well, more than okay. What led you to this route then? Because you said about having a name above the door, but also you were coaching, you were managing a team in New Zealand, I think you were. What's the differences between those two? One you're working with 16, 18-year-olds, the other one you're probably working with, first team, second team, etc. What would you say are the fundamental differences of coaching those types of players?
I think with first team footballers, there's almost a little bit of sort of acceptance that, well, this is the player that I am, that you're not going to really change me an awful lot in terms of the way I think. You will to an extent, but at the level that I'm talking about in terms of non-league, the player will sort of go, this is who I am. I work for you and I'll do what you want me to do. But in terms of, with a young player, you're obviously trying to develop them and nurture them to see how far they can go. There's almost, again, an acceptance that in first team football that a player goes, look, I'm at this level and I'm at this level for a reason. This is my level I'm playing at. I might be able to stretch to the league above, possibly the second, 2 leagues up, but this is sort of where I am. And there's almost a culture around, well, this is how we do things at this level. And I think that's sometimes the hardest thing to do, is to change, for example, a 28-year-old's mentality, whereas it's easier to change a 16, 17-year-old's mentality. What you do have is I think guys that certainly play in non-league football, I've got a massive respect for, and I did when I played as well at that level. These guys are out there, they do a day's work and then they go out and they train in the evenings, sometimes, twice a week or 3 times a week. And then they're traveling the country on a Saturday or Tuesday night playing football, and they're dedicated to their sport. They do love what they do. And yes, some do still get paid, quite well in the non-leagues, but to have that mentality of going out there and doing a day's work and then going and doing another shift in the evening playing football, a huge admiration for guys. I did it myself, but huge respect for what they do. So that's probably a key difference with working with young players every day full time to working with, say, part-time non-league players. In terms of working for somebody instead of, well, I went to New Zealand whilst, Pulse was very much, running. I was been back from New Zealand now 2 years. I went out there 4 years ago. Did a couple of years out there, and I was working for a club as a director of football and head coach. So on that side of things, I was working for somebody, and that was quite difficult at the start to going from running my own show to going to working for somebody. But quickly, you quickly get used to it, and it was absolutely fine. And we had great success. The team got promoted. We had a number of young players that were playing for New Zealand under-17 international side. It was fantastic. It was a great experience, a great time on the football side of things. It certainly, again, for me, opened my eyes a little bit more around football in globally rather than just what goes on domestically. I learned an awful lot out there in that time. But I'm now back you say, doing Pulse every day, and I do coach a men's team as well. I coach Badshot Lee in the Combined Counties League, which is, so I get to work with seniors as well as obviously youth players in the week. So there are differences. There's a lot of similarities, but there are also a lot of differences. You know, you're dealing with players, you know, that I said they've got jobs, they've got families, you know, and they've got their own responsibilities. Whereas I suppose the youngsters are a little bit more carefree, and you know, they turn up, they want to be with their friends and play football and study. So yeah, that's sort of really how it's different. But the game's still the game. The game doesn't change. It's just possibly the mentality does.
Yeah, that's the thing that brings us all together in the end, is the game. I mean, I think especially in England, you know, where, you know, it's ingrained within going to school and your mates, and that's what you do. You just go out and you play football. And I think for you to have been able to carry that on throughout your entire life, and just engulf yourself every day with football and an aspect of football, even if it's the business side of it, I just think you've probably lived a really great life in that instance, because you've been able to go off and enjoy it. Where's the future? So, you know, you've had a great playing career. You've now gone into coaching a lot of players. What does the future look like for Pulse, but also for yourself in your career?
That's a good question, actually, because in football you don't tend to look too far ahead, because a lot of things can change, circumstances can change. I'm still ambitious in terms of, you know, football, in terms of, you know, wanting to progress, you know, as a coach and become a better coach. And I think, you know, who knows what's ahead. That's the exciting side of things. You know, I think from not only a Pulse side of things, you know, we're moving to a new site this summer, so we've got that to look forward to. In terms of my own sort of personal coaching career, I don't know. You know, it would be great at some point to get involved with something, you know, at a sort of professional level, but I don't know if that will ever happen. You know, it'd be nice to sort of think that something like that could come along at some point, but you know, I'm not going to sort of put all my eggs in one basket on that side of things, because I really enjoy what I do at the moment with Badshot Lee, with a non-league club that's really progressing well, with good young players and a forward-thinking sort of backroom team and committee. So I really enjoy what I do at the moment, but you're always open to sort of you know, ideas and opportunities in the future that, you know, that you think, yeah, I'd like to be part of that. But as I said, you don't tend to look too far forward, because I think if you look at the average tenure of a Premier League manager, it's about 13 months. You know, and so we do know, working in the industry, that, you know, things can change very quickly, and you know, that is the football culture, unfortunately.
Yeah, interesting. It's been such a real pleasure in talking with you today, Paul. So thank you so much for your time. So what's your view on what happens next with Wednesday and Fulham?
Well, Fulham play Brentford next week for a place in the Premier League. Very tough game. It's too close to call, I think, on that one. Wednesday, where they're a little bit sort of in a club, sort of in a bit of a crossroads, I suppose. Where do they go from here? You know, they've got their sort of financial fair play hanging over them. That's still to be resolved. Question marks over Gary Monk, whether he'll stay, whether he'll go. I don't know. It could be another sort of tough season ahead for Wednesday. But yeah, I mean, Fulham are certainly in a good place with Scott Parker, and you know, I could see them back in the Premier League. I could see that after, you know, a year out. I could see them going back up, but Brentford are a very good side. I love watching them play. Yeah,
I know. I interviewed Rocket Long from previous from Sky Sports, also a mate of Ross's, and he's a Brentford fan, and he's been talking about that. You know, they're on the up, and he was really excited about the fact that they could get into the Premier League this year. So yeah, it does seem like there's a lot of good things going for Brentford, but you know, Fulham, they've got more. You know, they've been there. They've been in the Premier League. They've been, Obviously, unfortunately, a few years ago they got relegated, but you know they were up. They were in some of the European competitions not so long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so you could easily see Fulham getting back into the Premier League. You know, it's a place that they know and they've known well. I've been to Fulham a few times. Everton, Fulham away. I can't. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Can't wait to see what's going to happen. Any predictions which way it might go? Fulham
I've
or
got to say
Brentford?
Fulham, haven't I? I've got to say.
I think you've got to really.
I've got to, but it will be a really interesting game, and you know, it's a West London derby as well for a place in the Premier League. It's going to have plenty of. It'll be a good game to watch, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Paul, well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, and thanks so much for giving us a little bit of an understanding of all your football playing career, but then really what you're passionate around is coaching and getting players through into adulthood. And I think it's been really inspiring to chat with you today.
No, thank you. It's been great. Really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. All right, speak to you soon. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday doing something I would love to do, which is going out and playing football and being out with the boys.
No problem
Cheers,
at all.
Paul.
Thanks very much.
All right, cheers, Paul. Thank you. Bye then.
Cheers.